dijeron negro y todos me señalaron. Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi visión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
What's happening, good people? We are live and direct. This is the Rise Up Morning Show, Rise Up International Morning Show in the building. I am your brother from another mother, Kalanji Changa. I'm in the building. I'm live and direct with my comrades. We got my man, I think he's from Senegal. That's the word on the street, but whatever Senegal ain't popping like that, he switched sides. I don't know. I got my brother.
Used to be from Senegal.
Used to.
Who is he with? If he's not with Senegal, who
you with? Well, he's in France right now. I don't know if he switched sides or what. It's the Olympics. He froze up, so I'm gonna get at him while he froze up. He saw a homegirl from Australia breakdancing, so he might be from Australia now. I'm not sure. It's my man Boona. Boona, what's happening, brother?
It's all good. How are you guys?
Man, we're
good, man.
You know,
good to be back on the show.
I need some nourishment, but I'm all right. I'm gonna survive.
You're gonna survive. It's early in the morning, man. Why you hungry? You know what I'm saying?
That's why I'm hungry, man.
Anyway, you got Kimber in the background. Natasha had her Fruit Loops already, but Kimber in the background trying to get his up. You know what I mean? Natasha, how you doing, sister? You in the building?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Doing good. Rise up, grand rising.
Okay.
Rise up. You sound like you had your nourishment. That's what's up.
You see the fresh coffee mug she got right there, right? With the Gina May.
It's early in the morning. She got energy. I respect it.
Folgers in your cup. Yeah.
Tea in your cup. You got to get that, herbal tea in your cup. That's what's going to get you, awake.
What kind of tea you sipping on?
I'm sipping on roasted dandelion tea.
Okay. In other words, she got that ganja tea over there. They call it dandelion now. It's all good. She said roasted dandelion. Okay.
Yeah, because you got to roast it. You can't have it regular.
Okay.
I'm boycotting tea, man. That's the colonizers. And they, that was their thing.
No, that's not true because they went and colonized to go get tea. Because they were drinking sugar and milk. Okay.
Tell them again.
I can't have that. All right. It's all
they
right.
were drinking sugar and milk. They went and colonized to get tea. And then they wasn't even making it herbal. They wasn't even using it for medicinal purposes.
You just messed my joke up.
They was
You're
just
life of the party
milk
right now.
and sugar to tea. That's why you gotta drink your tea straight up, just like if you drink your coffee, just black. Drink your tea straight up. No milk, no sugar.
That's right. If you put no milk, don't be put no milk and sugar in your relationship either, brother. I just want you to know that.
Nah, never,
right.
never.
All things black.
All things black, man. Black and strong.
Why can Longy think he has to always talk to me about dating white women, man?
I'm just telling you, look, man. It ain't me, brother. I just heard a rumor, so I was just making sure. I'm trying to fight. I'm like, listen,
no rumors,
my brother good.
No pictures. You ain't nothing.
I ain't gonna see no pictures of you.
Nah. They unless it's some solidarity pictures. I hope they ain't got no.
That's what they call it nowadays, Natasha. Solidarity. Oh, okay.
That's what they be trying to call it, man. They try to all the phrases.
Ooh,
if you do see me in a picture with white women, it was at a solidarity event.
I just as long as I don't see no caption saying she got black in her now. As long as I don't see that, you good.
Yo, we need to focus over there. I don't know if he's frozen or he figure this out. Like, what's going on?
Boona just
he trying. He like
Boona confused. He like, I'm too serious for this madness right here. I could be at the Activist News Network.
No.
It's Kalaji Farm. Just letting you know. I was trying
to fix something in my laptop.
Okay, cool. That's what he's doing. He hoping he ain't find no pictures of him. That's what the deal is. Anyway, welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. We got all the photos, so don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? We'll pull your card over here. We'll do it to you. Anyway, it's a lot going on. I want to say this is a beautiful Tuesday morning for folks who are just tapping in, just tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, share. Black Power Media Reloaded is what it is. Black Power Media Reloaded. You can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on Twitch, on Twitter, on IG. And the website is blackpowermedia.org. Blackpowermedia.org.
We have a few.
Yes.
But I don't know if you've been saying this, man, but
okay.
Hit that bell. They got to hit like a bell to get notifications, right?
My man, thank you.
See, if y'all want to get those notifications when we're doing this, hit that.
Yeah.
Do that.
Ikemba is from Philly, so you know what I'm saying? He be thinking about the Liberty Bell all the time. So it's easy for me to remember that. I'm just saying.
No,
that ain't it? Okay.
Nah, it was a conversation I was having with someone,
Hey, brother, I'm glad you know. I see Boone over there look like he's talking to somebody, but it might just be
no.
Either that or he's talking to his lady blowing kisses through the computer. But anyway, you're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. This is where you can get it, get that critical political action. Every day is a great day for revolution around these parts. Today is Tuesday, August 20th. Shout out to my brother Hosh. Today's my brother Hosh's birthday, his born date. My brother Jay, Jonathan, his birthday was yesterday, so shout out to him as well. And we're gonna keep it grounded. For folks who don't know, Black Power Media is moving and moving and moving. We have a new piece to the puzzle, a brand new publication, hot off the press. Hot off the press. It's called Afropic magazine. Check out the new issue, the first issue. It is a what do you call that? It's the inaugural issue for Black Power Media. It is called Afropic Magazine Volume 1, and you can get it complimentary. You got to go to the website though. You got to sign up for it. It's blackpowermedia.org/shop. Blackpowermedia.org/shop. It's a real cool piece. Some dope articles, visuals, etc. Our publication, our magazine will be dropping once a month in the middle of the month. So make sure you support what it is we're doing. All we're asking for you to do is just sign up and check us out and share it. You know what I mean? Share the links. This is what we do. Black Power Media. So we have that. We also have a new show tomorrow, y'all. Did I mention we have a new show on here yet? No? Okay.
You not on here, but I heard through the grapevine that we had a new show.
Heard through the grapevine. Let me see if I could pull up a photo of this brother, since that might be helpful and whatnot. We have a brand new show. I'm gonna use one of his old photos. You know what I mean? Because that's when he became most controversial. You know what I mean? We don't shy away from controversy over here at Rise Up Morning Show or Black Power Media. So we have a new show, like I was saying, and it is a brother who many of us know well. If you follow hip hop, if you follow our culture, every Wednesday, right here on the Rise Up Morning, excuse me, every Wednesday, right here on Black Power Media, you have Public
That's
Enemy's own Professor Griff will be joining us. He has a new show on Black Power Media, and the show's called Arm the Masses. So make sure you tune in. Let folks know that the Minister of Information for Public Enemy, the lifetime Grammy Achievement winning revolutionary hip hop group, one of the groups that pretty much gave birth, for a lack of words, to a whole lot of folks who gained their consciousness. They were one of the catalysts for a lot of folks. And Professor Griff, we confirmed he will be the host of his new show right here on Black Power Media. Again, Arm the Masses. Check it out every Wednesday, 12 p.m. EST. So when you sneaking for your lunch break, you go check out Griff on Black Power Media. So we growing. We have another new show popping off next week. We're not going to talk about it just yet. We won't give y'all too much at one time, but just know that we are here and we're growing. You know what I mean? So anyway, how y'all doing, man? How was your weekend?
How was this weekend? It was definitely Marcus Garvey's birthday on Saturday.
Yes, it was.
So that was good. I was out for a little bit.
Okay.
And then that was it. That was pretty much my weekend. I try to keep my weekend calm until September because, once the school year starts, it really gets going.
It's on. No doubt. That's what's up.
Yeah. Now I was up in your parts, Natasha, New York, Brooklyn. I didn't make it to Harlem, but there was some things going on in Brooklyn. D12 had organized an event. There was Black Veg Fest too, but I went to the D12 event. It was outdoors. It got rained out at the end, but there was some definitely some great discussions around some serious discussions around some issues, international issues. There was some comrades speaking about the conflict or the crisis in Sudan. Definitely would like to bring them up on the platform too. The brother gave a powerful submission. There was some talking about what's happening in Congo. And I thought that was great because you go to a lot of these programs that is talking about Black power and revolution, and Pan-Africanism. But, they don't talk about these international issues, particularly like here, based here in the States. So, that was refreshing to hear that those issues being highlighted during the program. But it was overall, a great program, man. Outside of that, though, the family, we did something. My twins, whose birthday was on the 13th, we had a little celebration over the weekend. Their nephew was born on Marcus Garvey's birthday, so we was doing celebration for all of them. So yeah, it was a great weekend, man.
Okay. Shout out to the twins and to nephew being born on Garvey Day. You know what I mean? That's a good day to come out. Hopefully he'll live, with those same principles and take that day seriously.
Right
take
on.
it serious. So salute and shout out to him. It's funny every time I hear about Garvey. I remember going to this event one time, and one of these cats that don't really be knowing what they're talking about, he was saying, we give thanks to this one. We give thanks to Marcus Gravy and such and such.
Crazy, oh man,
bro! I was like,
who invited this guy? Who invited him? Sometimes we invite people because of who they affiliated with, or they gonna bring some people out, man. Nah,
yes.
we can't
bro.
be doing that.
I'm on stage on this panel, and for folks that if you don't know, we like to laugh. So I'm trying, because everybody else looking serious and shit. I'm sitting there cracking up, trying to like hold it in, but that shit wasn't working. And then I look at the audience and see somebody that I clown with, and it was all over. I had to get up like I was coughing or something and just walk off the panel for a second.
Marcus Gravy.
I've heard someone call him that, but to her, not like defense, but she was just starting to learn about him. Okay. Like she was just starting to learn about him. And one time she said, "Oh, okay, Marcus Gravy," and we were just like, "You mean Marcus Garvey?" But yeah, I did hear someone call him that before.
Nah, because my man was going off too. He was like preaching with it too. And the Honorable Marcus Gravy. I was like, oh shit. Then he was somewhat pudgy, so it didn't help. You know what I'm saying? Like in my mind, I was like, this motherfucker thinking about food.
Yeah.
But anyway,
might have knew it was Garvey, but he was thinking about gravy and biscuits.
Thinking about lunch. But anyway, how about you, Boona, man? Boona, like, man, I don't even know why I'm even on here with y'all.
I was in London.
We're about to get serious now, Boona.
We are, Boona. Chill.
I was in London, but before talking about my weekend, I just wanted to make a very quick comment on what Brother Kemba said, which is the importance of talking about what's going on in the continent. You know, showcasing the geopolitical events that are affecting people of African descent and Africans, right? Whether in Africa, or, you know, when we take what's going on in Ukraine or Palestine, these are all events that are very relevant for our own existence in the diaspora. But one of the issues that we're facing, because you mentioned Sudan, we've done several events online or in presential, where we talked about the Congo, the alliance of the Sahelian states, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. But Sudan is, I don't, any event that we've organized, I'm talking about here in France, talking about Sudan. And I think one of the reasons is because of the language barrier, right? Because it's an Arabic-speaking country colonized by Britain. So I guess that's one of the reasons that we don't hear often people, at least here in the so-called Francophone area, talking about Sudan, which I think is a shame because it's probably the place where one of the worst humanitarian disasters is unfolding now. And also a place where most imperialist, if not all imperialist powers are involved, right? There's a country that we don't talk about often, but which is playing a major role in the crisis in Sudan. It's the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates. Yes. You know, they're probably the main actor in Sudan, you know, funding and arming one of the factions, right? The faction that defected from the army, so-called Hemeti, right? Dagalo. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the Russians also involved because they wanted to build, or they've already done a naval base there in Sudan, in Port Sudan. The Americans, of course, are involved, and I think they are the so-called mediators in the conflict. The French are involved, you know, and of course the Israelis involved, right? Because just before the civil war of Sudan, they signed the so-called Abraham Accords with, you know, alongside Morocco, Bahrain, and other Arab countries, right? So, yeah, this is a situation that we have to follow because it's affecting our brothers and sisters in Sudan. And also, unfortunately, it's one of the conflicts that the mainstream media is not talking about. So I totally agree with what Ikemba said. We have to talk about these conflicts in our own, you know, own platforms. Also, I've talked about South Africa. There was a very significant event over the weekend. If you guys are probably sure that all of you have followed, the deputy president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, one of the main opposition parties of in South Africa, has resigned, Floyd Shivambu. So that was like a political earthquake, and he's joining the MK movement. But anyways, these are some of the events that we have to showcase in our own programs. That's why I'm so grateful and pleased to be on this international morning, because the guests that we're having on the show also reflect the interest that we're paying to, you know, events unfolding all around the world that are impacting all of us. That's why we need to also have a program, specific show with Dr. Joe Horn. Okay, I'm advocating for specific.
We know he was coming back to that somehow. You see how he did that. He been working on that all week. He played it off like, you know, like, yeah, Sudan, and went all the way back to
on the way to work.
Yeah,
Oh, he's one of the main geopolitical analysts that we have. And
Well,
he's
listen,
also an
man.
activist.
So live on this show, we're gonna give you that task and let him know that that 15, 20 minutes a week, you know what I'm saying? We want to have him come in as an analyst. I said 15, 20 minutes. We know that ain't a question ain't gonna be that short. But yeah, I would say go for it. And to the chat, let us know if you think that Horn should be on here weekly. I think they should come on and just give a
yeah.
I don't know. I think we can make
It's
that
not
happen.
weekly, monthly.
Forget what the masses say, man.
Daily.
No.
So Buna's gonna be on that task since he brought it up. But anyway,
Yeah,
no doubt we're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show, and definitely if you missed the show last week with Dr. Gerald Horn, we think it was a powerful show. Go to Black Power Media Reloaded, check it out if you missed it. And it's time for us to go to a quick Black Power break. We talked about Africa a little bit, so let's go to one of the most powerful and beautiful sons of Africa, checking out the Rise Up Morning Show.
Few speeches have marked our history as much as that given by the Congolese Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba on June 30th, 1960, the day the Congo achieved its independence. This speech could be considered the birth of modern Congo, a country that was then emerging from 80 years of colonialism and which looked with confidence to its future. In Africa, this speech is considered one of the key moments in propelling the continent onto the international stage. And in the West, many have seen it as a call to arms, opening up Belgian-Congolese hostilities, plunging this former Belgian colony into chaos. A chaos marked by the fall of the Lumumba government in 1960, and the following year by the assassination of the man considered in Congo to be the country's first national hero.
Combattants de l'indépendance, aujourd'hui victorieux, je vous salue au nom du gouvernement congolais. À vous tous, mes amis, qui avez lutté sans relâche à nos côtés, je vous demande de faire de ce 30 juillet 1960 une date illustre que vous garderez ineffaçablement gravée dans vos cœurs, une date dont vous enseignerez avec fierté la signification à vos enfants, pour que ceux-ci, à leur tour, fassent connaître à leurs fils et à leurs petits-fils l'histoire glorieuse de notre lutte pour la liberté. La République du Congo a été proclamée et notre cher pays est maintenant entre les mains de ses propres enfants. Ensemble, mes frères, mes sœurs, nous allons commencer une nouvelle lutte sublime qui va mener notre pays à la paix, à la prospérité et à la grandeur. Nous allons établir ensemble la justice sociale et assurer que chacun reçoive la juste rémunération de son travail. Nous avons connu les ironies, les insultes, les coups que nous devions subir matin, midi et soir, parce que nous étions des nègres. Qui oubliera qu'à un noir, on disait tu, non certes comme à un ami, mais parce que les voix honorables étaient réservées aux seuls blancs. Nous avons connu que nos terres furent spoliées au nom des textes prétendument légaux qui ne faisaient que reconnaître les droits du plus fort. Nous avons connu que la loi n'était jamais la même, selon qu'il s'agissait d'un blanc ou d'un noir, accommodante pour les uns, cruelle, inhumaine pour les autres. Nous avons connu les souffrances atroces des relégués pour opinion politique ou croyances religieuses. Exilés dans leur propre patrie, leur sort était vraiment pire que la mort elle-même. Nous avons connu qu'il y avait dans les villes des maisons magnifiques pour les blancs et des paillotes croulantes pour les noirs. Que les noirs n'étaient admis dans les cinémas, ni dans les restaurants, ni dans les magasins européens. Que les noirs voyageaient à même la coque de péniche, au pied du blanc dans sa cabine de luxe. Où périt tant de nos frères. Les cachons furent brutalement jetés, ceux qui ne voulaient plus se soumettre au régime d'injustice, d'oppression et d'exploitation. Cette indépendance du Congo, si elle est proclamée aujourd'hui dans l'entente avec la Belgique, pays ami avec qui nous traitons d'égal à égal, ni les Congolais d'une de ces noms ne pourra jamais oublier.
What's happening? It's the Rise Up Morning Show. That's Patrice. Y'all don't know. Patrice Lumumba, one of the greatest that ever did it. You know what I'm saying? A young man, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Patrice was assassinated at 36.
Something like that. He was born in 1925. Next year is his centennial. So,
of course. Same year as our brother Malcolm.
Same year as Franz Fanon.
Malcolm X.
Robert F. Williams.
Yes.
And Medgar Evers.
Great year, huh?
Great year.
There's a year of power right there. And we're going into that, as you mentioned, the centennial next year. So definitely look for some serious things coming your way from this platform, because we always want to pay homage to those who came before us, not just here in the U.S., but across the globe, because there's a certain degree of arrogance for those of us colonized here in the U.S. For some reason, many Africans, when they think of enslavement, foolishly, they think that, it was only here and this was the worst form of enslavement. It's crazy when I hear folks talk about what type of enslavement was the worst. If you're being enslaved, no one can measure your torture compared to anyone else. These Europeans in particular, we already know that they have a level of ruthlessness that we haven't been able to match. In fact, the fact that we haven't been ruthless with our oppressor is, to my, in my opinion, is part of the reason why we are dealt with the way we've been dealt with. So if
the slave, colonizer is if you're putting them on a pedestal as far as how brutal they were, why the hell? Well, you need to do something about it then. Like, these are the same people you claim you identifying with, which I never get. I could never say that I'm an American, man. Like, that's crazy. That's a European construct, man. You know what I'm saying? You can't separate like the land, the name of the land from the social group. You know what I'm saying? Like, the land doesn't have a name in itself, and so we're talking about for real an institution when we're talking about America, and for any African that wants to identify with that, I think it's insane, man.
No doubt. We're gonna get to some news. News.
Can I say something very quickly about the Congo?
Please do. Get down, brother.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, go in.
Yeah. One of the issues that we're facing is that our history, despite all the research that has been done, our history is not known to the masses of our people, right? I was talking to a brother from Congo who probably have on the show this week, Brother Loizi Kinshasa. Shout out to him. He's the Secretary General of the African People's Socialist Party.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, yeah. So he was telling me that as he was growing up in Congo, Kinshasa, same country as Lumumba, one of the things that struck him was that there was no library, there was no public library in the where he grew up. So you can imagine the lack of knowledge, okay, lack of formal knowledge, their own history, and this is a trend that you can see in many African countries. So one of the issues that not only is the colonizer, the exploiter, the oppressor rewriting history, okay, but the people have been the martyrs of history are not aware of their own history. So this leads us to major obstacles. The first one is that since we know our history, most of us we tend to underestimate the level and the nature of fighting that our ancestors have deployed to confront their oppressors, right? Because the resistance has never stopped, whether in Africa or in the diaspora. African people have been fighting everywhere. If you go to the US, there have been, thousands of so-called slave rebellions. You go to Colombia, they had the palenques, which is the cities that the slave who fled from slavery had founded. You had the quilombos in Brazil. It has never the narratives of those of us, our ancestors who've been fighting, has not been properly, if not told to the younger generation. The younger generation still doesn't have a good, knowledge what happened. If you take the example of Congo, for example, during the Belgian colonization, there were more people killed in Congo than during the Holocaust. Okay, not doing it's not about Olympics of suffering. Okay, we're not interested in that. It's because at that time the term genocide didn't exist. Okay, so when they refer to those events in the Congo, where you have half of the population has been massacred by the Belgians, and the same thing happened in Central African Republic, the neighboring country of Congo, where during the French colonization, half of the Central African Republic, which by the way is larger in terms of size, is larger than France and Switzerland combined. Okay, has a population of only I think 6 million people. France is 65 million people. So just to give you an idea, it's because during colonization, because of the forced labor and the mistreatment of the so-called natives, the population has decreased by 50%. Okay, so this is I don't know how many people especially us in the diaspora, are aware of the impact that slavery in the diaspora in Africa, because colonization is not a form of slavery. Okay, it's homemade slavery. They come to Africa to enslave our people. They're in South Africa, in all over the continent. So I think one of the reasons why they are so the oppressors are so skillful at rewriting our history is because they still have economic and physical means to impose their own narrative. Okay. When I was in high school, that was I'm not as old as I look. That was like 15 years ago.
Did you say 50 or 15 years ago?
15 years. The French government, they passed a law, okay, whereby the history professors were obliged to teach the so-called benevolent achievements of the colonizers. Okay, so they passed a law actually saying that whenever you teach about the colonization of Africa, especially North Africa, because they have a beef with the Algerians, they said that the teachers, they have to teach their students the positive side of colonization. And this is the type of debates that we're having. And you still have Africans who think, not revolutionary Africans, but you still have some uncomfortable that we should be recolonized again, okay, so that we can somehow reach the same level as the so-called Europeans. But fortunately, we did not apply the same type of treatment to the oppressors that they have enforced upon our people. So this, I think, shows the humanity of our ancestors. Because if you had applied the same thing, I think there will be basically countries where there will be non-black people, right?
Yeah. No, that's and I'm glad you pointed it out because folks overlook the Congo. And the Congo is one of the most important richest, if not the richest, resource-wise on the continent. And I think that the number of murders and assassinations, when you talk about genocide, you're talking about, man, millions of people, countless millions of people, going back not only in recent years, but taking it back even to like Leopold. You know, folks talk about Hitler. Leopold makes Hitler look like a walk in the park. And because of the fact that genocide was committed on African people on the continent, it's not, as Boona said, a Olympic suffering. The reality is that when we talk about colonization and when we talk about colonialism, we talk about imperialism, even folks who claim to be allies, they conveniently overlook atrocities in darker nations. They overlook the tortures of African people, not only in the continent, but in places like Haiti, places like Colombia and Venezuela, wherever there are African and indigenous people, we tend to overlook. And they say, well, the focus is this. And they do it in such a way that if you mention the Sudan, it's like, oh, you know, you say, what about the Sudan? It's like, oh, well, you know, there you go. There's no, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that we're against oppression everywhere. You understand what I'm saying? We're not saying that this is the flavor of the month, because if that's the case, we will never have our turn, so to speak. You know what I mean? So again, going back to Leopold, we're talking about hundreds of millions of Africans have perished up until now. And then over the past, 30 years, we're talking about how many millions? Like 12, 13 million Africans in the Congo. You know what I mean? It's so many different layers to this thing that, again, it seems like even so-called left organization and left platforms, they don't want to dance around those, but they want to dance around these issues. They don't want to deal with them directly. You know what I mean? Because it calls into question their whiteness. And I'm just going to say it like that. And there's a lot of other platforms with African people on it as well that do the same thing. They're chasing whatever mainstream media is talking about. They'll talk about Russia and the Ukraine all day long. You know, and of course, the conversation should be around Palestine. But the conversation should definitely be around the Congo. The conversation should definitely be around Haiti. The conversation should be around all these other indigenous and African countries that exist and that have been tortured and have had genocide committed against them for years. There should be a discussion around the indigenous people of this country right here, quote unquote Turtle Island. But no one has a monopoly. And unfortunately, we're like the political football. They use us, they throw us, they kick us around, and every time, you know, we end up talking about something like Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? We gotta the fact that we even have to say some BS like that. Well, Black Lives Matter. What does that mean? Black lives don't matter in the Congo, do it? Black lives don't. Even when you talk, and I confronted some of these white left out here, and these white liberals that, like, you know, that think that because they was walking around with Black Lives Matter T-shirts or signs and whatnot that we supposed to have been oppressed. So I would be like, okay, what are you doing to support Haiti? Oh, Black Lives Matter. What about, you know, Rwanda? What about, you know, Niger? What about Ethiopia? Black lives only matter in certain neighborhoods. You know, it only matters when it's convenient. But anyway, I'm sorry for going on a tangent, but on the show. Sorry about that, brother.
Yeah, you know, if I can add to that, Natasha, did you want to chime in? But if not, I can. Is Natasha? Is she frozen?
I think Natasha either froze or was quite sudden by this.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Might send her a text message. But yeah, just to add on, when you look at that video, I was laughing watching the king at the time, what was his name? King
Baudouin, yeah.
Who is the great grandson of King Leopold II, who you brought up.
Right.
I'm laughing because he's talking to I don't know if that was Joseph Kasavubu, who was the president, who was going to be the president of Congo at the time, but because he also gave a submission at this Independence Day, I guess you could say Independence Day ceremony celebration. But I'm laughing because the king went up there and he was talking about what the Belgium had done for Congo. And he's talking about, paved roads and basically how Congo was backwards until Belgium got there and sort of civilized and built civilization for the Congolese and that they're leaving it in a better place than they found it, and for the Congolese to carry on. So this is what the conversation was around before Patrice Lumumba got up there. So Patrice Lumumba is basically, for those who are not familiar with the background, don't have context, Patrice Lumumba is basically going against everything that the king had the quote unquote king had just stated, right? And talked about what the struggle that the Congolese the struggle for independence, the struggle that they went through to gain their independence and their liberation. Like, this thing wasn't given to us by the Belgium. We had to take it. And when you look into that history, you do see the struggle that the Congolese waged against this colonial state, the Belgium, and also France, who was involved in that as well. But the last point I want to make, because y'all touched on a lot, so I just wanted to bring up Namibia, because when we talk about genocide, the Germans committing, their first act of genocide, or the first act of genocide of the 20th century was against the Herero people. And I think there were some other ethnic groups as well of Namibia in the early 20th century. So that speaks to the point of, the genocides that take place on African land. That isn't uplifted. And the other point that Malcolm, talked about, the connection, this international connection with Africans in America to Congo, and what's happening in the Congo, how it impacts what's happening in America as it pertains to people. And he's joking about people in Mississippi and so forth, and you look just as much as a Congolese than the Congolese does. But when you look at the history, last point I'm making, you look at the history in the 18th century, the largest homogenous group of people that came to the Americas in the 18th century came from Congo. And so that's why and particularly in the Carolinas and in Georgia, when you look at the Gullah Geechee and other Africans that were brought in there, that's why there's more of a retention of African culture in that area than in other places, because of the homogeneity of those Africans that were there. And plus, they of course, the population disparity as well. There was a large group of them, but they were able to retain. So a lot of that culture, there's some West African as well, but a lot of that culture that was retained comes from that area known as Angola and Congo and so forth. So I just wanted to raise that point as far as the, even the connection, ethnic connection that we have.
No, you raised some very powerful points, and I'm just going to comment on the two of the points that you mentioned, because I think they're very important. What you said about the Belgian king of that time, Baudouin, they were very shocked by Lumumba's speech. Nobody imagined that Lumumba would have said that. And one of the reasons why they were so shocked is because Lumumba, he was not the revolutionary, anti-colonial leader that he eventually became when he started his political career. Okay, because Lumumba was trained as the what they call in French the évolué. Okay, basically people who've been civilized by the whites. Okay, when he joined the political arena, he had that background. Okay, so he was not initially he was opposed to independence. Okay, if you really look at Lumumba's history, he was initially opposed to independence, but then there was a turning point, several turning points. One of them was his meeting with Frantz Fanon and Nkrumah, okay, in 1958 at the All African People Congress in Accra, and
changed the game.
Yeah, and by the way, this is an anecdote that I found in read in a book that you guys can look up. It's Susan, the author is Susan Williams, White Malice, which actually talks about the infiltration, the involvement of the U.S. okay in the destabilization, recolonization of Africa through the examples of Congo and Ghana. Okay, they the one the U.S. was directly involved in the assassination of Lumumba and also dealt with over Nkrumah. Anyway, the anecdote is when Nkrumah met Lumumba for the first time, the person who was doing the translation for them, the translator, was a CIA agent. This is something that people found out only recently. But my point was that the paradigm, okay, from King Leopold and King Baudouin's time up to now, the Western paradigm hasn't changed. Okay, because whenever there is an African country, that says that they want to implement some, independent policies, whether in terms of geopolitical alliances or, appropriating their own natural resources, the Western countries always come up with the same stick, which is we're gonna cut the development aid that you guys are receiving. Okay, this is basically the same argument that King Baudouin used at that time. How can you be so ungrateful to your white masters? Okay, you'd be in the bush. Okay, you'd be living in the jungle like savages. How can you say that how can you dare criticize your own, white masters? That's why people were so shocked by Lumumba's speech there. I think if we got the full speech, it would be very important to show it again, because I think as Africans, we can learn a lot from it in terms of interacting with the Western powers and also the achievements of our ancestors, because Lumumba basically sacrificed himself on that day. Because it was on that day that the Belgians decided that he would be killed.
Right.
Okay.
They said he signed his death wish when he gave that speech. Yeah.
He said after he didn't realize how shocked the Belgians were. Okay. So at the end he said, if I hurt someone with my words, I want to apologize. Okay, but that was too late. And the second point I wanted to make, last point, is what you say about Namibia. It's very important because you said it was as you rightly pointed out, it was the first genocide of the 20th century. But the interesting point that I wanted to raise here is that Joseph Mengele, you guys are probably familiar with him, who was the doctor of Auschwitz, okay, who's basically practicing some experiments on the people who would be eventually sent to the gas chamber. He was trained by someone, okay, another physician, who made his own experiment on the Namibian people. Okay? And that doctor was appointed as a rector of the University of, I don't know if it was Munich or Hamburg. Anyways, I don't recall his name, but he was the mentor, the teacher of Joseph Mengele. Okay, so basically our people in Africa provided the blueprint for, the mass slaughter of European Jews in the 20th century. And the difference is that Israel got some reparations, okay, from Germany. They're still getting reparations from Germany for the slaughter of millions of European Jews. And as Africans, we've always been in solidarity with the victims of that genocide, okay? Been in solidarity with the plight of Jewish people throughout the centuries, okay? But Namibia still hasn't got any reparation from Germany for the slaughter they made.
And why do you think that is, brother? Why would they not give Namibia reparations and they give poor little white Israel reparations?
The reparations they paid to Israel, Israel used those reparations to buy weapons
to torture other people.
Arms industry to oppress the Palestinians.
Of course.
But we all know why they didn't give any reparations. They didn't give any reparations to any African people on this earth.
No, of course not.
They didn't give a reparation to your ancestors in the U.S.
I'm still
they actually had to pay reparations.
Yes,
Haiti is a nation that had to pay reparations. And
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Pay reparation until 2015.
I mean, listen how crazy that is right there. The fact that these crackers are so gangster that the enslaved, the tortured, the murdered, the descendants of those who were terrorized and brutalized have to pay reparations to the oppressor.
Yeah.
Because they lost money. And like you said, 2015, it ended. So we're not talking about 50 years ago. We're not talking about 75 years ago. We're talking about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? This is like, and that's why, the French, they're a special kind of bastards. You know what I'm saying? Them, Israel, the U.S. is a piece of shit altogether. We know about that. But when you're forced, Natasha, you're mute. When you're forced to pay reparations, I mean, how does that sound? Is it, Natasha? You have Haitian ancestry.
I was saying that they all swim in the same pot.
Yes.
Because
Gumbo.
Thinking about even having when Haiti had to pay reparations, you had the U.S., you had England, you had obviously France who was demanding it, and even some of those Latin American countries that refused to recognize Haiti's independence, refused to trade with them in order to force them to be in a position where they had to pay the reparations, right? And to make sure that they weren't invaded again, and that they didn't have to go to war after now becoming a newly established nation. Whereas when you think about the United States, when the United States said, you know what, we're United States now, we're a different country, we're not part of Europe anymore, and they fought England, they had a whole war with them and to get their independence, and they said, look, everybody stay out of our business, we're a new country, we're building ourselves up, and guess what, they all supported them. So it's like, I think also too, when we're thinking about reparations, I'm also thinking about war. Like, let's say when we think about when let's say World War II, when you had the Japanese that was fighting, with America, and then America won, and they got to set the terms, in terms of what Japan, how much they would help Japan, or Japan was indebted to them all the way, they had to, let the U.S. in and become so heavily influenced by the U.S. after the fact that they've lost. And I think that's the same thing that we're seeing with African people around the world not getting reparations, is because we're still in a war. When we think about the Europeans, when they were doing their, they call it the world wars, but it's really just European wars happening. World War I, World War II. So when you think about them, the two of them fighting, like, the one set of Europeans here, and then the other set of Europeans here in the East and the West, and they're fighting, and, against Russia and, what was the other countries? I'm forgetting, but Germany, Russia, Germany, right? So US and the UK and France, they were all fighting them. And at the end of the day, they're the ones who won. So they said, what? Germany, we want you to give reparations because they won. And at the end of the day, it also benefits the West to have the people who look like them, the Jewish people that they're talking about. They are, you wouldn't, if you line them up, they would look no different. If you line them up, you would not be able to say, oh, this is a Jewish person, this is a white person. That is not Jewish, unless, they're wearing their garb and all that other stuff. And so it benefits them, because guess what? Even here in the US, they still benefit from being aligned with whiteness, until sometimes they tell you they're Jewish. If they're not like Hasidic Jews, you don't know that that's a Jew. And so that benefits them also. That's why they were also able to go into Argentina, some of the ones who committed the Holocaust, and be able to live their life out over there. And there's a bunch of Europeans in Argentina that, they're Argentina, but they're just Europeans who went over to Argentina. So it's just like, they're making, that's why they're doing it, because they've won the war thus far. And so they're giving reparations because of that. But I think that's why when we think about reparations, obviously, we're going to still keep fighting for reparations, but really understanding that, like we're talking about, colonialism still exists. We're still under colonialism. We're still fighting this war. And so winning, right, when we get reparations and when we're in a position of power and we've positioned ourselves to have that power, then we can definitely see the reparations. But I think that's one of the main reasons why that we don't see reparations coming to us, but we see reparations coming to, the Jews, or even when we saw reparations coming to Japan after World War II, of the Japanese after World War II, right? Now they were positioned in a way, even though they lost the war, where because the United States also dropped two nuclear bombs on them. Yeah. That no other country, that was the most inhumane thing, not the most, but was one of the most inhumane things that you could ever do, any country could ever have done. And the US did that to a small island nation. So now you're looking really crazy out here too, because, okay, fine. Yeah. Now you're going to give them reparations. You nuked their country. So we're going to give them reparations too. So I think like there's a lot of those like things at play that decide on whether or not these Europeans decide to give reparations or not. And that's why we see them moving so weird today.
I'm glad.
I don't even like the way it sounds though, but go ahead.
No, I'm glad you raised Japan, because I think that, again, they talk about how Japan entered World War II when they, dropped the bomb. When they attacked Pearl Harbor, and then all of a sudden, of course, years later, they dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 10 days apart. You're talking about not just dropping a bomb, but like you said, it's like you put these folks in a microwave. You nuke them, but not just the humans, but the animals, the plants, life itself. You destroyed the ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? You affected growth. You know what I'm saying? Just all types of things where I know that it's still affecting and impacting to this day. No telling, what has, when years from now, when it's unearthed, what are some of the things that were impacted and affected, not only in Japan, but across the world. Yeah. So when you talk about Palestine, you hear folks talking about, the genocide in real terms. The U.S. has no mercy or concern because they are the OGs of terrorism. You know what I'm saying? They are the original gangsters, not guerrillas. They're the original gangsters when it comes to extermination. You know what I mean? Because what that was for you to talk about what went on in Israel and not talk about what went on in Japan is absurd. You're talking about 300 and something thousand people decimated during World War II. Was it 300,000? A little bit more? You know what I mean? We're talking about in a matter of 10 days. You know what I'm saying? They bombed them in Hiroshima and then Nagasaki 10 days later. I mean, that's like so insane, just on so many levels. Like, how do you have that type of heart? You weren't fighting the military of Japan. That was citizens. You understand? But it doesn't matter. They got reparations. Everything's cool. And, let's look at it as a thing of the past.
But what makes it even more, evil, and I remember I had a student and she was talking about, the Japanese. She was trying to rationalize, not that she agreed with the killing, the bombing and the killing of the Japanese, trying to rationalize that they were at war. The Japanese, they should have, they were told that this was going to happen. They should have surrendered. They had the opportunity. And so I had to explain to her, this is what happens when people, don't study history. And I had to school it to something that she didn't know. I'm like, they were in talks for months. They knew the Japanese were going to surrender. And she couldn't believe it. She was like, what? She had to think about it. I was like, next class, I'll I'll bring the evidence for you.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what makes it even more evil. Like they were in talks for months about the Japanese surrendering. Russia, the talk was about Russia.
Russia would come before the
yeah.
I mean, the USSR, yeah, they would have come before the US. That's why they had to speed up the process.
They wouldn't have been able to continue this war without the support of Russia. If Russia was going to join the front against Japan, and so you know, Japan, they knew that Japan was going to surrender, and they dropped the bomb. And like you said, like they, even after dropping the first one, they knew the war was over. You know, even before they dropped the first one, but after the first dropping of the bomb, they decided to drop another one.
And I want to correct myself. That was 3 days later, not 10 days.
I was going, I was about to, but I was like, hold on. He said 10 days.
Yeah, so that's just, I'm realizing I said 10 days. I'm like, wait, that didn't sound right. No, so you're talking about August 6th and August 9th, you know what I mean, of 1945. So
and you know, Israel was not allowed to join the commemoration of the 99th. Oh, sorry. Was it the 79th anniversary of the bombing? And the Western nation, they basically decided to boycott the commemoration because Israel was disinvited by the Japanese.
Isn't there something? I mean, like you know, like.
Corey Kemba, I cut you off.
Yeah,
no,
but I cut him off first. Good.
No, but that's hey. At the end, the point is, it's just like, you know, this the dehumanization of you know, non-Europeans. When you look at the propaganda, and it was on both sides, I will admit, but the, you know, the propaganda against the Japanese to dehumanize them, to make them look as if, like, to paint them and paint a picture of a people whose life really didn't matter because they were savages, they were evil. Look, you know, something has to be done about these people.
Right.
They did a census in America, and I can't remember the number offhand, but it was a large amount of American citizens who agreed with the that these people needed to be exterminated.
And what happened to the Japanese in the US?
Oh, yeah, talking about the what do they call them?
Put them on those
prison camps or internment camps.
Camps, right.
Yeah. But really quick though, you brought up Japan. That's why I went there. But I kind of wanted to go back to the reparations discussion, because even Natasha, as you were speaking, and this is coming from someone I'm on a reparations task force in Philadelphia, right? But even when it comes to, you know, the discussion of reparations, there's still, you know, part of me like, you know, this is something that the Europeans, right, the colonizers are giving to, like, this repair of African people. And you made a point of, you know, when we're in power that we will get those reparations, but when we're in power, you know, we won't need reparations. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we're sovereign, we don't need reparations. You know, we payback is what we.
Well, let me ask you this, because I mean, I think it's not that you would need. It's not that you would be, even if you're in power, like they've still destroyed. It's just like when they decided to, you know, destroy what they quote unquote built, you know, when they were leaving different countries in Africa. You still destroyed this. You still destroyed this, right? And you still need to rebuild your nation. It's just like, even like France, you in power, but guess what? They not in power, but guess what? You still got your reparations.
That's right.
From and even when I forgot who was talking about.
And I think they call it an indemnity, right? It was like a
From 18, I think it was from 1830 to 1955. So more than 100 years.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, like, you in power, and then even on top of that, forget about just having indemnity, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. Then after that, even when you think about the African countries that were, you know, in the part of the Francosphere, after you leave, you're still siphoning money from their economy and to build up and to prop up your own nation. That's not saying that, like, obviously, like, us as African people that we would need to do that, because obviously that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, you know, power to, you know, practice our sovereignty. Really, we don't want to have to deal with y'all.
Right.
We want to, like, you know, let us be. We'll let you be.
I don't know if we can let them be though, but I would. That's
you know what I'm saying? Like, no, you don't get off the hook because we empower. No, you still owe, and you owe way more.
Well,
they have a system though. They have a system that needs to, you know, suck the life out of people. Like they can't be because the very system that they are part of is a parasitic system. It needs to expand from its inception. That's what is done, and that's why I think, like, even with, you know, the whole reparations thing, like I'm with it, because, you know, if anything to you know, but they're not going to do anything to even. So I don't know. It's a lot of around that. I don't want to belabor, but yeah.
I subscribe to George Jackson's reparation. He talked about reparations in blood. So you know what I'm saying? To me, I think that would be that's somewhat satisfying. That's like, you know, well, you know, this is what you do, so let's give it back to you. Let's take it back to your man Hammurabi, and we could deal with Hammurabi's code of law. So if you would put your hands somewhere it don't belong, then lose your hands. You know what I mean?
I think that's what they're saying, Kalanji. They saying, hey, you want reparations, you're gonna have to come and get it in blood, take it in blood.
That's what they trying to, that's what they saying. They trying to do it, you know. On the one hand, they're like, look, we're gonna piecemeal, you know, even like whether it's here in America or whether it's on the continent, you know, where not even just from, you know, like colonialism, but even like things now during neocolonialism, where you have these multinational corporations going into Africa and destroying the water and destroying the land. And, you know, like for in Niger, was it in Niger? What's the Delta? It's the
Nigeria.
In Nigeria, the Nigeria Delta, where they're suing, you know, where they've been working for many years to sue the UK, right? And they've been giving them a runaround and do all this other stuff. Like, so it's like, but then now there's evidence recently that came out that, you know, helps the case of, you know, those in the Niger Delta. But it's just like in the Niger Delta, it's like, but they're doing this kind of like little piecemeal when you catch them. Like, okay, per state we'll give you this little bit, per group we'll give you this little bit in this country. Like, no, we need reparations full on, and they're trying to like make it so that we'll give you a little bit here so you can feel like you did something, like, you know, you're getting it. We'll do it by county, by state, per, you know, group, per area in Africa. Like, no, and that's one of the things. Last point, where like Imam Jamil Al-Amin, you know, there was a video of him talking way back, you know, I think like it was in the 1960s or in the 1970s, where he's talking about, like, you know, the Europeans, the Europeans in America, they gave you what they wanted to give you, not what you were asking for. Okay. So it's like what we're asking for is not what they're giving us, right? When we talk about reparations, they want to give us what they want. And therefore you're not really getting what you've been asking for. They're giving you what they feel like they want to give you so that you can be quiet and, you know, be strung along for a couple more years. So yeah, I mean, we'll take what we have now, but this is not it. Like,
well, let's keep it real though. I mean, playing crackers advocate, right? And we know damn well that if the US, France, Spain, Germany, Portugal, and whoever else we're missing, there's a few others. If they actually were to pay reparations, U.S. alone, if they were to pay reparations, then it would collapse overnight. There would be no United States, because the reality is, look at all of the people across the world that have been affected and impacted by this nation and European states alone. You're talking about the genocide of the natives of this country. You're talking about the genocide of African people on the continent. You're talking about what they've done to our ancestors who were here toiling, laboring, being raped, brutalized, robbed in this country. You're talking about the prison industrial complex, which is slavery by any other means. You're talking about Japan, of course, they already got reparations. But my point is the violence that has been produced and directed by the United States and its allies and its puppets like the UN and the EU and all of these other little these groups. When you really look at it, to your point, there's really nothing civilized. There's no negotiations that could be met that would satisfy the victims of this particular empire. There's no they couldn't afford to pay reparations at the risk of being realistic. At the risk of being realistic, if they were to seriously pay reparations, they'd still be in debt. There would be no government. There'll be no FDIC. There'll be none of that because it's impossible. To me, while I like you said, Ikemba, I'm for reparations or the subject or topic of reparations. Realistically, and I hate to say this here, it is the same way I look at electoral politics. Now, I support certain candidates. We're clear. We understand that the system is designed a certain way, right? We respect some of these independent candidates. We respect Cornell and the Jill Steins and the Claudias and all of them. But at the risk of being realistic, the United States isn't designed for them to be presidents of the empire. It don't work that way. And if you took all of their votes, all the independent candidates together, and you put them together, then let's keep it a buck. Yeah. The U.S. is a two-party system, and this two-party system is what kind of rules right now. Aside from that, the Electoral College, so on and so forth, there's so many different things stacked. So it kind of, in real life, I hear folks saying, Cornell need to drop out and this and that, whatever, so on and so forth. What are you talking about? Like, so it's his fault. So we're gonna lose because of. I mean,
that's
with all
crazy.
due respect, and we love and respect the brother, but with all due respect, even the way this thing is lined up, we can't even vote for him in some areas if you wanted to vote for him. You understand what I'm saying? That's just the reality of it. We're gonna do write him in. You know, but folks are in an uproar like, oh, it's his fault and this and that. He need to sit down and shut up. The man's done more for you prior to this that he can do for you even if he was in office.
Yeah.
That's the fact. The man, you already proved the man loves his people. What else you want him to do? You know what I mean? And that's not, you know, it's just keeping it real. But yeah, reparations, we would love it. But
real quick, man, since you brought up the write-in, I want to, right here on Black Power Media, announce my candidacy for president. You can write my name in, Ikemba Ojore.
Okay.
President
write
of
my
your
name
university,
in.
Right?
Right? Say that again?
President of your university. Not talking about
President of his university? Yeah.
President of America. Write my name in. Now, so if I win, I'm just saying, like, Black Power Media, let's see how much pull we got.
Down?
Yeah.
Right.
Write my name in, y'all.
Well, it's already a conflict because Chairman Boona gonna be running as well. So I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
One of the contradictions that we'll have to face is that, especially people living in settler colonial states, is that, you know, settler colonialism is also affecting the mentality of all people, including people from so-called minority groups. I'm saying that because one of the challenges or contradictions that we'll have to face is that in the US, for example, I've seen some polls that suggested that most non-blacks, okay, I'm not talking about whites, most people from non-black communities, they oppose reparations for blacks. Right? This is crazy. I mean, you know, that's one of the strengths of imperialism. They can play on their own contradictions.
Yes.
Okay. We talked about the Japanese who were, you know, put in camps during the Second World War. You know, I can name some organizations that did not behave very well when the Japanese were in charge. Okay. Some, you know, black organizations and black leaders, I wouldn't say black leaders, black news leaders or even trying to seize the properties of the Japanese who've been put in France, right? So I think one of the issues that we'll have to overcome, if that is possible, as people living in, the belly of the beast in imperialist countries, is that, solidarity is based on ethnic landmarks, okay, belonging to a certain group. That's why you see, some groups in the US who oppose reparations for blacks, which is crazy because most of those groups, when they came to the US, they also belonged to the oppressed, okay? But the fact that some of them even oppose affirmative action, okay, which is also crazy. I mean, the black people they literally built the US, but people see the US as an equal opportunity country, but those opportunities they got, okay, they got it at the expense of other groups, namely the indigenous and the blacks. And that's honestly makes me very sad.
Not even an equal that we have to face. Country. It's straight up meritocracy. Like that meritocracy is real. That it's not real. No.
But I think that Buna is hating because France doesn't have Kamala Harris. And I think that, he just hating because, he wanted her to be the president of France. But, so.
It's funny you mentioned that because, like I think I told you, one of the shows that when Obama was elected, I was actually in the U.S. There was a program that was organized by the U.S. Embassy in France. So they put, a few, around 15 people from the so-called suburbs, okay, where the most people of African descent live in Paris, and we're actually picked to go to the US, okay, because this is part of the soft power of the US. Anyways, I was there in the US when Obama was elected, and when I came back, I was interviewed by several, media outlets, and the article is still online, by the way. People can find it.
We gotta look at this.
Oh yeah,
it's in French.
You have an Obama T-shirt on, did you? You got French, like you can't translate. Go ahead.
Y'all probably had some Obama T-shirts on too. Everybody was drinking the Kool-Aid at that point.
You're crazy.
We're so excited. So
chase these crazy bald heads off of Black Power Media.
One of the media outlets in Paris, they interviewed me, and the title of the article was "I will be the first Black president in France." That was back in 2008. At that time, you didn't know. Yeah, I said I was 17. I was so excited. Obama. Most Black people were very, very, very excited about Obama, but this was like 16 years ago.
That wasn't that long ago. Hold on.
Yeah,
but I mean, people have realized. At least people who have who pay attention to what's going on in the African continent and who are somehow Pan-African, they know that Obama has probably been the biggest catastrophe for African peoples, not only in the US but worldwide. So what he's done in Africa, no other president has done it. In terms of AFRICOM, in terms of bombing Libya, killing Gaddafi, which also explains why all those Sahel states are destabilized. Okay.
Hold on. I think Boner trying to get away from something he said. We gotta rewind.
Yeah.
Are you saying right? To us that you running for president, brother? Is that this your announcement?
I was saying
this official coming out.
No, what I'm saying is that I was just responding to what Natasha said. Which is that unfortunately, I think a lot of people still believe in that meritocracy, right? Despite all the evidence they get that the Black people are not only mistreated in this country, but in all countries where we are a minority, even the countries where a majority. Despite all the evidence that we get, you have unfortunately many of our brothers and sisters who think that the situation that we find ourselves in, is our fault. We still have a lot of people who are thinking like that. So they think that if they work hard, okay, if they manage to get Black faces in high places, as you say in the US, our situation will improve. And I see it around me. You have a lot of people who keep blaming Blacks who are in jail, for example, for their own situation, saying that if you work hard at school, you'd have got to get a better job, despite the fact there is evidence from the French government itself would say that non-whites, okay, people with African background, who have the same university degree, who live in the same neighborhood and same gender or whatever, they are twice as likely to be unemployed as white French, okay? But people still believe in meritocracy because this is what they were told. And this is one of the issues that we have to overcome, because we have been so brainwashed into thinking that, the countries where we live in, they live by the values that they profess. Okay, in Francis, liberty, equality, fraternity. In the US, I don't know, whatever. But then you still have a lot of people who believe in that.
It's terrorism by any other name. Check it out. We need to do a Black Power break real quick. You know what I'm saying? And come back to talk about some more international affairs. We know it's crazy up in Venezuela right now. You know what I mean? So we definitely want to touch on that because, although there are protests around the world and just so much going on in regards to their election situation and attempted coups, and we know that the U.S. has its grimy little fingers in the mix. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have to talk about that. Y'all cool with that? We good?
Let's do it.
Just gotta check, man. I gotta check in with y'all. I don't want to be kicked off the platform. You know what I'm saying? Now y'all know how they be doing me. They try to get rid of me. So I don't want y'all to get rid of me. Anyway, we're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show here on Black Power Media. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say nothing. Don't ban me. We're gonna do this Black Power break real quick. Y'all stay tuned. Stick around and all that good stuff. We're gonna go to, I think we need to bring on one of the brothers that we had on recently. One of the people that a good brother Boona loves. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and hit y'all with this Black Power Media. Blah.
The mistakes our radical so-called ancestors have made is that they looked at the Jewish community of Europe and saw how that they were suffering, persecuted. And then they looked at the Jewish community of North America and saw how the persecution was much less. And they came to the conclusion that the United States must be more progressive than Europe. But since they didn't have a conception of settler colonialism and didn't have a conception of white supremacy, that is to say that the settlers here in North America needed every warm European body they could muster in order to subdue the Native Americans, keep the Africans in line. And so therefore they made a deal with the Jewish diaspora. Now, what's interesting about that as well is that if you look at the writings of these settlers in the 18th century, when they were talking about a First Amendment with regard to religious freedom, they put it in the context of needing more European settlers, not necessarily in terms of some sort of Enlightenment idea that we're more progressive than Europe. Just like if you look at the Second Amendment with regard to the right to bear arms, they made it clear that they wanted settlers to be armed so that they could shoot Native Americans and shoot Africans. And of course, there was no Second Amendment for Black people in late 18th century, early 19th century. A strategic objective of the settlers was to keep arms out of the hands of the Native Americans. Even if you go back and look at Westerns, this genre of Hollywood movies, oftentimes there's a plot twist about some diabolical settler who's selling arms to Native Americans, and you're supposed to boo and hiss as a direct result. And so you see this entente between the Jewish diaspora and the United States. There are bumps in the road, for example, but we have to acknowledge that many Jewish people were able to reach extraordinary heights. I'm thinking of David Yulee. I don't know, are you a pro football fan?
Sorry about that. I'm a Bengals fan.
Okay, so you know about the Tennessee Titans, right?
Yes, I do, yeah.
You're familiar with their running back, Derrick Henry?
Yes, I am.
He's from Yulee, Florida, Yulee. David Yulee was of Jewish ancestry, was one of the leaders of Florida, one of the leaders in the depredations inflicted upon the indigenous of Florida. Recall that there was a de facto alliance between the people we call the Seminoles and the Blacks of Florida, which was quite harmful to the interests of the settlers. That's one of the reasons why David Yulee was elected to high office, even though he happened to be Jewish. Judah Benjamin was a leader of the Confederate States of America, which of course rebelled against the United States in order to perpetuate enslavement of Africans forevermore. He happened to be Jewish as well. Now, of course, there are bumps in the road. You might recall the Leo Frank case about a century or so ago in Georgia, when a Jewish man is lynched based upon a blood libel. Interestingly enough, the Israeli authorities are cheapening that serious phrase by saying that South Africa is engaged in a blood libel by dragging Israel into the dock at The Hague. Blood libel was this European canard that Jewish folk killed Christians to drink their blood. So Leo Frank was lynched because of blood libel in Georgia. Interestingly enough, and this is a tip to our scholars in the audience, we really need a new history of the Leo Frank case, because the current histories do not point to something that's quite curious, which is that the Frank defense tried to blame the killing of the Christian girl, Mary Fagan, on the black janitor. But that defense was not accepted, interestingly enough. And Leo Frank was lynched. We need a story, a new history that takes that into account. But that then brings us, of course, to the end of World War I. And Turkey, which had been the occupying power in historic Palestine, is on the losing end of World War I. Britain is on the winning end. They cut a deal with the Jewish diaspora with the Balfour Declaration, promising a Jewish homeland in historic Palestine, although, of course, Zionism, which arises at the end of the 19th century under the leadership of Theodore Herzl, Herzl, not only had the historic Palestine as a possible Jewish homeland, but they looked at Africa, they looked at Madagascar, Uganda, etc. But in any case, that leads to an influx of the Jewish diaspora into historic Palestine, setting off conflict with the Arab population. Nonetheless, as a result of the Holocaust, there's quite a bit of sympathy for the Jewish population in Europe in particular. And so the United Nations votes 1947, 1948, that there should be two states, a Palestinian state and a Jewish state. The former does not come into existence for various reasons. And that leads to the present crisis that we're now facing. U.S., of course, was one of the first states to recognize Israel. And once again, you cannot understand that, nor understand why the United States continues to wield its veto in the Security Council on behalf of Israel without understanding this long-standing, centuries-long relationship between the Jewish diaspora and settler colonialism under first the British flag and then the U.S. flag.
You're telling it all.
No doubt, no doubt. That was Dr. Gerald Horn with a good brother Isaac on Isaac's show that he moonlights on, Indigenous Nightmare. Make sure you find that. Check that out. Also, check out the recent interview we did with Dr. Horn last week right here on Rise Up Morning Show. So definitely, we can, get to it, So any thoughts as far as that particular clip to people?
Yeah, like we said, we need a monthly show with Dr. Joe Horn.
That's what you're gonna say. You're sticking to that, right?
The funny thing is not funny actually. He's been a direct target of the Zionist lobby in the 1980s, and he's still being directly targeted by the same lobby up to now. It's been like more than 30 years or 40 years of Zionist lobby, attacking Black freedom fighters, right? Because I think it was discussed in one of the shows that the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, calls itself anti-racist organization, had infiltrated black organization on behalf of they actually sent a spy to several black organizations on behalf of the government of Israel and apartheid South Africa. Interestingly enough, was an ally of Israel back then. And Dr. Horn, as he recalled in his book titled White Supremacy Confronted, he's been a direct target of that spying activity. In fact, there is a website, I'm not going to say the name, because it's a famous website, which is responsible for harassing all the so-called pro-Palestinian activists on U.S. campuses. If you go on that website, you can find a whole page dedicated to Gerald Horn. With a lot of lies, obviously, but this is one of the tools to intimidate or even get some of the students fired from some U.S. universities. Okay, so it's a very serious issue that we have to deal with, and we can probably have Gerald Horn on to discuss how to confront the Zionist assault on Black freedom struggle in the upcoming monthly program on Black Power Media, right?
I like how you're trying to get us listed as well. Like they got a whole page on Black Power Media.
Well, they'll have one soon. I'm not.
Don't worry.
I'm not leaving the US, so they probably not target me.
So you don't care, huh? Oh, thanks.
He's just like
you guys.
Yeah, like good luck. Anyway, checking out the Rise Up Morning Show where Boone has lost his damn mind, but it's okay. Anyway, so definitely again check out the show. We have like I said, a new show next week. It will be not next week, a new show tomorrow. Arm the Masses, hosted by Professor Griff of Public Enemy. We also have another show that will drop on this coming Monday. It is an extension of Guerrilla Intellectual University with Dr. Joy James. She'll be back live August 26th with a couple of her co-hosts. So we'll let you all know what's going on with that. So we're turning up the volume over here at Black Power Media, and we are happy that you all are subscribing and checking us out. We are growing. I'm seeing the numbers, and I'm grateful because sometimes I don't know, people think they're thinking, but sometimes we're not. So we want to make sure with what it is we're bringing to the table. Just this show this morning. You're not going to have too many folks that's talking about, getting in depth about the diaspora. But not only that, speaking on issues within the so-called left and the contradictions, because sometimes, we want to act like we're all in one big happy party, and we're not. So we're not going to play with that over here. So anyway, I definitely appreciate Dr. Horn's work, and I appreciate you all's work, because we are literally moving this propaganda machine. You all can't see Boone and Kimber in the background. They're playing. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but we gonna let that go. But anyway, Venezuela. What's your all's thoughts on Venezuela right now? Are you following what's going on? I mean, it's getting kind of ugly over there.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about that this whole situation, and because it's definitely very familiar. This isn't. I mean, this thing happens every time, and this whole idea of like, who has the power to recognize who? If I say I recognize you, then you're official. If the U.S. says they recognize you, then you're official. If they say they don't recognize you, all of a sudden, okay, well, then you're not official. Then things can't move on. It's just like, well, who gives you the authority? Who says, like, to a sovereign nation, you get to decide who, based on who you say you recognize is the person. And this is I think, like, we see this over and over and over and over and over again so many times amongst so many different elections within, the South America, the Caribbean, Africa, like it's the same playbook every time. And I think also too, this idea of like, who gets to be violent and who doesn't get to be violent. What does it mean? Because when, like in this example, right, when we're talking about them, they would say like, oh, well, this, as they were saying in this article, that he's being positioned, Edmundo Gonzalez is being positioned as this like bird loving old man, who's who's had such a democratic past, and then painting the other people as, oh my God, they're violent, they're doing this, they're doing that.
Right.
Yeah, and so this idea of like, violence, and how violence is always played with, and how they use that. So I mean, those are some of the thoughts I've been having around what's been going on in Venezuela.
Right on. Anyone else want to hop in before we get to the story?
Yeah, I was in Venezuela late June, so they were bracing up for the elections, and we all saw this coming. I mean, anyone who's invested in the political development in Venezuela knew that Maduro was going to win the elections, and the opposition, they said that they wouldn't be accepting any defeat from their own candidates. As you can see, his name, Edmundo Gonzalez, who's by the way, he was a little known ex-diplomat in Venezuela. Most Venezuelan people didn't know him. And I think he was there was some article that was suggesting that he was not even prepared to run for president, because the real candidate of the so-called opposition, there are different oppositions in Venezuela, left and right, but the far right leader of the opposition is the lady who's standing on her left, who's holding the candle, Maria Corina Machado. She's the one who's been promoted by the mainstream media over the past few weeks and years, because before her there were Enrique Capriles, then there was Juan Guaido. But now she's like the real deal, quote unquote, for Western media, and she's a very, very dangerous woman, far right. I'll not talk about her family origins, because obviously people, you don't choose your family. Although her political behavior also can be traced back to her family's involvement in the enslavement of African people in Venezuela. Because she's descended from a slaveholding family, one of the richest aristocratic families in Venezuelan society. So these are her family roots. But I'm just going to give you some facts about her very quickly. First of all, she backed the 2000. She's 57 years old now, 56 or 57 this year. But she's been in politics for a very long time, at least for the last 25 years. So in 2002, as you all know, there was a coup against President Chavez. The coup that was aborted because the masses of Venezuelan people, they went to the streets and they defeated the coup plotters. She signed a letter. Demanding President Chavez then to be overthrown. She's talking about democracy now. That's why I'm bringing that up, because it's funny that people who are presented as the beacons of democracy also backed coup d'état. She started an NGO, US-funded NGO that's called Sumate in Spanish. You can say it as Join Up in English. It was so-called NGO that was aimed at promoting democracy, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, as you know, which is a branch of the CIA. She called for sanctions against her own country, saying that it is the only way to make Maduro apply, human rights, conform to human rights standards, international human rights standards. She even called for military intervention in her country. In her country. That's why she was not able to run for the election. Because people were saying that Maduro rigged the elections. But what happened is that she was because she got a diplomatic representation on behalf of Panama in 2014 for the organization American States, and she called for military intervention against Venezuela. And in 2018, she even sent a letter to Netanyahu, the genocidaire in chief, calling Netanyahu and then ex-president of the Argentina, Macri, to overthrow militarily Maduro in Venezuela. So we're talking about the very dangerous woman, far right, coup d'etat plotter, who celebrated in the mainstream media, including by people from the so-called West, the so-called left. Sorry, you have people on the left wing saying, Maduro was on the right side of history when he was with Chavez, but then they went too far. So now we cannot, as people on the left, we cannot condone the dictatorial regime, blah 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 blah. So now they basically backing a far right candidate okay, has a long record of plotting against her own country and even calling for military intervention led by Israel. And by the way, earlier this year, she said that if she was elected president, the capital of Israel would be moved to Jerusalem. She would recognize Jerusalem as capital of Israel. Just to give you an idea of who we're talking about.
Right, right. No, and we appreciate that because indeed she is a special kind of danger. And I think that what happens is if you just look at her and listen to her speak, you would be fooled. And I've seen a lot of folks on the left, to your point, rallying on her behalf. And it's kind of confusing. I'm just like, when it comes to electoral politics and political education, somehow the elevator gets stuck in many cases. You know what I mean? So on one day you're talking about revolution, and the next day you're talking about supporting the regime based on gender, complexion, age, beauty, who they cool with, all that type of stuff. So definitely appreciate you breaking down her role and her attempts, you know what I mean, to overthrow, oust, commit coups, so on and so forth. One of the things that's happening as well, our good sister Natasha spoke about the bird-loving grandfather here, right? Who's another ruthless war criminal who served under that particular regime. So it's like just looking at these two together, it's like amazing. It's like two gangsters, and it's I kind of see it reminds me of like Biden and Harris. You know what I'm saying? That type vein with just a different spin on it. But anyway, this article talks about Salvadoran ex-combatants reveal Edmundo Gonzalez's role in U.S.-backed massacres in El Salvador. So, as we know, the Venezuelan far-right former candidate for these presidential elections that was held on July 28th, Edmundo Gonzalez has declared himself the winner despite coming in second place. He's been recognized as the president of Venezuela by Washington and some of his vassal states as part of a plot reminiscent of the failed Guaido projects. In parallel, there's a broad campaign on mainstream media and social media to create an image of Gonzalez as what our sister talked about, this bird-loving old grandfather. Folks that are familiar with him and with his fake form of democracy and his attack on the Maduro regime, we know that Gonzalez, going back from 79 to 85, he served as the second in command of the Venezuelan embassy in San Salvador under Ambassador Leopoldo Castillo. Now Castillo and this cat Edmundo Gonzalez, they both participated in the United States planned Condor counterinsurgency project in El Salvador. And that plan was to destroy, kidnap, disappear, just totally brutalize and terrorize folks in that region. Castillo was a close collaborator with Edmundo Gonzalez, and Castillo was named, according to sources, Matacaruas. And I know I'm saying that wrong, but it means murderer of priests. And that's how they know him. They know him as an agent of death. They say he persecuted Christians in the country, and many believe that he was involved in the assassination of Saint Oscar Romero. They know that he was involved in the assassination of nuns going back to 82. And according to the CIA, when in declassified documents, Castillo was mentioned as jointly responsible for the intelligence services that coordinated, financed, and gave the order for the execution of Operation Centauro, which consisted of a series of violent actions committed by the Salvadorian army and the Plan Condor death squads that were trained, armed, and financed by the U.S. government under your homeboy Ronald Reagan, and that was to eliminate the Christian communities. They were looking to, to basically continue to decimate. During that period, Castillo and Gonzalez were in charge of the Venezuela embassy armed forces, and death squads were killed 13,194 civilians. So basically, when you talk about this particular character, he has a track record, much like many of the other folks here in the U.S., many of the other politicians around the world. He's been in bed with the U.S. and with these different forces for decades. And like Biden, they seem to have amnesia when it comes to his background. Like Harris, they catch a case of amnesia when it comes to their political backgrounds, because they have a vested interest in a false sense of democracy and a destruction of anything that reaps of true democracy. So of course Maduro is painted as this, this former freedom fighter, this former, individual that was in line with democracy, to slipping off the joint now, and now he's on the pipe or something. And it's like, there needs to be a new regime. So this guy comes along and he's like, I'm the man with the plan. He's backed by homegirl, and again, it's another attempt to take over. But this is what goes on around the world. This is what goes on in every country. We talked about Haiti. We talked about the Congo, and so on and so forth. There's always some type of U.S.-led coup. There's always some type of U.S.-financed coup, while the rest of the world sits and looks dumb as if nothing's going on. You have protests going on around the world right now, but there's a lot of confusion. Anybody else want to add on to that story or comment?
No, I think to your point though, really it ties into another story, something I was going to speak of in regards to just the U.S. involvement when it comes to coup d'états, the assassination of sometimes duly elected leaders of countries, right? Democratically elected leaders in countries. The U.S. Involved, whether directly or indirectly, right, through proxy wars, and this, the story with Haiti, which is another place. Recently there was 4 Colombian vets that were implicated in the assassination. 4 of them that was trained right here in the U.S. And they said many of the soldiers, Colombian mercenaries that were a part of that assassination, were going to school, were trained here in Florida, right? Based here in Florida. So now there's talks about the U.S. Implication, the implication of the U.S. in that assassination, right? And I guess I'm biased, but when I say this, but I believe the U.S. was, involved in that. I wouldn't be surprised. But at the end of the day, I think, and I wonder what you guys think, the fact that they were trained here in the U.S., that the U.S. should be held accountable for that. You know what I'm saying? Like in your schools, these people were, so there's that connection that you have to these mercenaries. And there's a history of U.S. involvement in Colombia, in Haiti, right? With the invasion of 1915, invasion of Haiti in 1915 by the U.S. And I mean, even in what was that, 2001? When the U.S. invaded Haiti again. But Yeah, but I think it just like really speaks to your point. But that's imperialism. That's the American empire, right? When they have a geopolitical interest in a country, they could care less about the history of the person that is working and that is aligned with the interests of the US. That none of that mattered. You know, we spoke about it on this channel with Dan Gertler. I'll bring him. You know, this Israeli billionaire at the U.S. They have an interest in the mines that Dan Gertler owns, and because corporations are concerned about the sanctions and what it would mean to invest in Congo if the U.S. is going to continue to sanction Dan Gertler and these mines that he and their investment may be impacted by these sanctions, they're not going to invest, which is going to, in their eyes, hurt the U.S. economy. So, okay, let's lift the sanctions on Dan Gertler, despite the atrocities, despite the corruption, right? No jail time, no nothing. But I think it really just speaks to the hypocrisy of the United States, man. Yeah.
I want to say that you're watching the Rise Up Morning Show. Unfortunately, we are short on time on this particular episode. We definitely need to come back and revisit again what's going on in Venezuela, what's going on. You mentioned Haiti. Of course, you spoke about those mercenaries trained in the School of Americas, which is right here in Georgia. You know, and we're going to talk in the future. We'll be talking about making a connection between not only these assassinations, but the School of Americas and cop cities around the country and globally. You know, there's so many, when you talk about trainings, I mean, this rabbit hole goes so deep that shit, Bugs Bunny will get lost. You know what I'm saying? So this is what we're dealing with. You're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. It's Black Power Media. Getting tuned in tomorrow morning and every day, 8 a.m. Excuse me, not said every day. Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. Eastern. I almost forgot what it was doing, what was going on, and so on and so forth. But anyway, y'all stay strong, stay tuned. Again, new shows. Like, subscribe, do your contributions. Perhaps Boona, Natasha, and I can get some of them fresh headphones and microphones. Yeah, you know what I mean? We're going to see if we can step our game up.
Level up like a Kimba.
Yeah, we can do what?
Hey.
I said we can level up like a Kimba.
You better level up.
Now,
that's in the Kimba.
What it is, you know, the Black Power Media audience, they deserve quality. So, you know.
Is that it is?
Yeah, I said I got to invest. That's all.
You know what? I'm going to do you like somebody once did me one time before. I was talking crazy. You know what they did? They went like this.
Don't do it.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares until they frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Well, my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven. like heaven's only in the sky, like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution, it's real solutions, where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution, where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.